Be sure and tell them Large Mars sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We liked our movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained as pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the feedback bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Tennis Podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie with an IE.
And I'm Sweetie with a Y.
Happy post-Valentine's Day.
Oh, yeah, that happened.
Yeah, we've had some good previous Valentine's Day
Yeah,
ones.
I was trying to remember. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I just listened to First Wives Club.
Oh, that was a Valentine's Day?
Yeah, because we were like
Oh.
sisters
doing it for
ourselves.
themselves,
But
including
we were,
Valentine's Day.
I believe that particular Valentine's Day, I had just broken up with my boyfriend
Really?
like a couple weeks before, so I was in maybe not the best
Was
shape.
that the one I
but you
slapped
wouldn't
you
even
before?
know. Yeah, you might have, but you wouldn't even have known in the podcast. We were very like anti-Valentine's Day during the podcast.
Are you sure it was that one? I feel like
Yeah.
it was. Okay.
Because I talked about how Carol had just visited our baby niece, so 2017, and I was going like a couple weeks later. So yeah,
Bummer.
dated it anyway. So yeah, so we've had a good couple Valentine's Day ones. Hope you were able to celebrate Valentine's Day in any way, whether it was with a honey or whether it was just your honey self. Just do it up. Love is all around us. But in the spirit of that, I thought it was rom-com time. Woo! Because it's been a while. And I chose one of my favorite rom-coms and probably, one of the most very famous movie to come out of the 1980s, I'd say. Very tail end of the 1980s. And that would be When Harry Met Sally. So, When Harry Met Sally from 1989, directed by Rob Reiner with a screenplay by the lovely Nora Ephron. Love
She's a doll. She's a
that
doll.
bitch.
It's so Seinfeldy. I didn't
It
realize
is.
that
It's
until
just
I
chatter.
was older. But like a lot of the things, like the basic, like the things that he says are funny because they're true and they're just like obvious.
Yep.
But the way, I don't know, it's just like a very Seinfeld, Larry David style of humor or something.
Totally.
It's funny.
So my history with this movie goes back to I want to say that it was like my first adult rom-com that I really like saw and connected with. Because you have ones when you're a teenager, right? And they're specific to like the teenage genre. This you're talking about like 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this when you're young, you're kind you might not really be like getting it. But I was really connected with this movie and was really moved by it and really just like loved the ending and loved how it ended and loved like their whole love story. And for me, it's only like grown over time. I know for some people, maybe this movie isn't aged well, but for me, it's aged beautifully. It's like a fine wine. I love it, and I love different parts of it. Yeah, more so as I age. You always should rewatch movies as every different parts of your life because you'll have different, thoughts about them and stuff. And now that, I've gone through some of the dating stuff and then I've gotten married myself, it's like, yeah, you just see it through a different lens.
You're married? Oh my God.
How about you, sweetie? What's your history with When Harry Met Sally?
So I,
Sally, please, Mr. Adams, please stop calling. We do not know where they meet.
Adam's Family.
Yeah.
Look it up. So when I was right in the heyday of writing my horror blog, which is called The Horror Digest, of which I pretty much watched like a horror movie a day. I don't know, like it seemed like that, but I posted a day for sure, so I was doing something.
She had a
but I
lot
was
of
just
time.
watching a lot of horror movies. And I decided that I needed like a horror cleanse. So it was just like, I'm going to watch a bunch of comedies. So I decided to watch a bunch of comedies that I had never seen before that were like dubbed as like the best comedies or romantic comedies or whatever. So this was one of the ones I chose. And it was funny because I chose like 5 different movies and Carrie Fisher was in 3 of them.
Whoa.
And I don't know why. And like I didn't pick them like with that intention, but it was just like she just kept popping up
Happy
in all these
Clinky Dink.
movies. But yeah, I watched this one. I liked it, but I don't think I felt like a huge, like I didn't really get it yet or like whatever. I mean, I was 23 and I only had like 2 boyfriends. So I was like, I don't really get it. Yeah. But I liked it and I thought it was funny. And, for some reason I always thought they like didn't end up together at the end. I don't know why. But on this rewatch, yeah, things are so different over here on this side of the 30s. It's like, you just can relate so much. Totally. And I mean, not to like every single thing, but just to the concept of being like all these people around you are finding love and you're like, blah, 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 this is stupid. And then, I don't know, there's just like all different things that just really speak to me. Yeah. But it's really sweet. Love that Meg Ryan. She's such a babe in this. Her skin's like glowing all the time. I don't get it.
Frosty lips.
And Billy Crystal. Yeah, as Sweetie said when we were watching it, really a terrible person in this movie, I would say, for most of it. But because it's Billy Crystal, you just can't help but like him. Right. And I would agree with that.
Yeah. I think it was good casting at that part because you have the Harry character being like pretty cynical and dark. That's just his persona, right? That's how he approaches things. That's how he like approaches the world. But really he has a good heart like deep down. And it's just kind of covered over with this sort of, you know, not like a facade, but like just the way he goes through life and thinks about things. It's a little neurotic. In the beginning, he definitely is just like kind of, I don't even know what the word to describe him. He just is like, is just kind of gross. And the fact they even like, I mean, they're not really friends at the beginning and that's why, because she like can't stand him. And you understand that because he's just like annoying with her and just inappropriate. And it just like was clearly making her feel uncomfortable. I mean, we'll go into it, but you know, they come around. So anyway, so who is in this? I think we've just said the 2 mains. So Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. So this is a Rob Reiner film, but Nora Ephron, like I said, wrote the script. We all know Nora Ephron. Meg Ryan was kind of her little darling.
Her muse.
Yeah, for lots of her projects. So Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail. She loved using Meg. Who wouldn't? This is definitely like heyday of Meg Ryan. That's what he said. Like, so just cute as a button. And, you know, she's neurotic too, but obviously very likable. And then their 2 friends are Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby is the man's name.
Wow.
Yeah,
pulled that one out of your butt.
Up. And they're great too. So like they're little BFFs that kind of go through the movie with them. They're just like spot on, especially Carrie Fisher's character, who's just hilarious as she is in most movies. And that's like pretty much it. I mean, there's kind of like people you'll see throughout, like, oh, it's like the wife from Arachnophobia, like
Betty Spaghetti.
Yeah, oh, Betty Spaghetti, who we found out, you know, perusing the trivia. So we've already talked about how Betty Spaghetti is Penny Marshall's daughter. But did you know that Penny Marshall was married at one point to Rob Reiner? And then Rob Reiner's Betty Spaghetti's dad.
Maybe they did know because her name is Tracy Reiner.
I never put it together.
They put it together and we didn't.
God,
so,
I feel like a big old dummy.
I feel like a really big dummy.
Yeah. So this was nominated for an Oscar for screenplay for Nora Ephron. So cool thing about Nora Ephron too is that like, you know, all her stuff was like basically like based on her life. And all original, you know, original screenplay, like it's so freaking amazing, right? So they often say, so this movie was based on Rob Reiner is sort of the Billy Crystal character. He was married and gotten a divorce, and kind of Harry's experience being single was sort of his experience like post-divorce and what he was thinking and how he was depressed and everything like that. And then you have elements of the Sally character, very much Nora Ephron, so like the way she would order food, a lot of her experiences in New York, stuff like that. So, If you've never read, I think we've done other Nora Ephron books, brought up, her writing is so great. So if you ever get a chance to pick up some of her stuff, definitely do it. And some of, her other movies. I mean, which ones have we covered for her?
You've Got Mail.
Yeah. That's it?
I think that's it.
Yeah. We'll have to do Sleepless in Seattle eventually. If you ever... the Heartburn is one I've watched kind of recently, which is Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson, which is like totally crazy and is based on Nora Ephron's relationship with Bob Woodward.
Who's that?
Or is it Carl Bernstein?
What?
I forget which ones. But
Who are either of those people?
Guys who broke Watergate, Woodward and Bernstein. Yeah. I think it's Bob Woodward, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
He was kind of a jerk. But anyway, so he's the Jack Nicholson character, and he's kind of a jerk. But that's a good one. And the movie's like pretty 80s, but not too bad. Anyway, so like we said, rom-com. So this should be like pretty easy to talk about. And it was just a lovely little watch. Had like... every week's kind of tough these days, and it was nice to have a little bit of levity in our movie watch tonight. So, yeah, really enjoyed it.
Definitely helps.
Right. So it's time for the Sweetie Synopsis.
Yeah, sweeties.
When you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start immediately or right away or something. I'm paraphrasing.
Come on. I'm having what she's at. I'll have what she's at.
I didn't want to do that one. That was so typical.
That's what we're waiting for.
I was almost going to fake an orgasm. But,
oh, boy. Oh, boy.
But I thought I'd give y'all a break.
Oh, boy. Harry Burns. I wrote it down, but then I couldn't read my handwriting. And Sally Albright are driving together from school at the University of Chicago to New York City. It is an 18-hour drive. They're taking shifts. They're driving straight through. And they don't know each other, I guess, even though Harry is dating Sally's like good friend. I'm sure she's been acquainted with Harry, but they've not spent a lot of time together, maybe. Who knows? So they embark on this journey, and it's pretty clear that, like, Harry is annoying to Sally. He's, like, eating grapes and spitting the seeds out the car window, and it, like, I mean,
grapes with seeds are
tough sell.
Yeah, a tragedy. If you ever mistakenly got those, you're like, oh, man.
Why do they still make those?
Worst. I have no idea. It's the worst.
We can genetically engineer these out of here.
Maybe not in 1977.
I was just thinking about like watermelons the other day and how like you just never see like actual watermelon with seeds in it anymore.
Whoa.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that it exists, but like I always just get like the slices or like the half a watermelon.
A watermelon roll with the
I love a watermelon roll. I mean, those are seeds. Fucking great. Those were like out of stock all summer, and I was very upset and sour about it. And then finally I got really one, and good. I was like, it was worth it. Yeah. The little like lemon rind on the end. Ugh, it's the best. Good. Anyways, so they're not getting along, and they like have these funny conversations, and Harry's very fond of being like, women are this, men are that. Yeah. And it's like, okay, Harry, like calm down. That's not it.
I was gonna write them down, but it was honestly getting exhausting. I was like, I don't want to discuss. It was
like
all
women
of
like
these.
to cuddle forever after sex.
He's a big like philosophy guy. It's like Harry's philosophies. It's like all his little musings on what mainly are about women in relationships, right? So it's like interesting stuff. And like Sweetie said, it's a bit like Seinfeldian in the sense that like if you've ever been in a relationship, then you probably some of that stuff you would relate to, right? But it certainly is a pretty cynical view of relationships and love, right? Mm-hmm. That's just kind of his thing. Even though he seems to be like always in a relationship, he's very cynical about it.
So true. Yeah. So at some point, Harry realizes that Sally is very attractive, and he like smiles and he's like, "Did you like? Wow! Like I didn't realize my like." Whatever his girlfriend's name is, Anne or whatever, like never said you were attractive or something. It's like this whole weird thing where like he's like, you're more attractive than like my girlfriend who's your friend, and like,
you're like stuck in a car with
that
dude.
What's going on? Ugh. So she's like, ew, stop being creepy. And then like who knows what happened after that point in the car trip, if they didn't talk the rest of the way, or like
and like with stuff like that, it's just like why would you bring it up, you know? Like what are you going to gain by saying that stuff? Clearly, almost 75% of the time, someone's going to be uncomfortable and not feel flattered by that. Like,
I mean, or like all the time.
was he
It's
just
like when
being
some
outrageous and wanted to be like,
He just
ooh, look
thought-
like edgy I am?
he
like,
thought
telling
that
you
she
this
wanted
stuff.
to know that, like
Yeah.
that she would like hearing that, and that it was like a compliment.
Right.
But it
No.
but it come off weird.
No.
So they get to New York and they part ways, and then 5 years go by. So Sally is in the arms of some strange-looking gentleman. Okay, he's Gerald Ford's son. Sweetie found it out. I mean, he had a weird face. It was like very square.
Did he look like Gerald Ford?
Maybe.
Who has
I
a
mean,
square
like,
face?
I couldn't place it, but I was like, that is a bizarre looking man, is definitely what I was thinking. And so his name is Joe. And then who should walk by but Harry? And he actually stops and, like, we think he recognizes Sally, but he actually recognizes Joe. So he's like, Joe, hey, buddy. And he, like, doesn't even notice Sally. It's really weird. And she's like, oh, my God. And then he gets introduced to Sally, and she's like, wow, he doesn't even remember me. But there's some suggestion in his eye is that, like, he did know. And, like, I don't know. It was strange. Anyway, so they get on, Sally gets on a plane. Harry gets on the same plane. And then he's actually sitting just, like, one seat behind her. And the guy next to Sally's like, oh, take my seat. So then they get to spend the whole plane ride with each other, like, catching up and talking. So what kind of ends on that one is that I think she tell him you made a pass on me? And then he's like, no, I didn't. And then there's this whole thing. He tries to ask her to dinner that night, and she's like, no. And then,
Well, he's getting married though.
oh right, that's the thing. Like, things are going great for him. He's getting married to some woman, and she's like, great.
And she's been dating Joe for 3 weeks.
Right. And he's like, let's go to dinner, like, as friends. And she's like, well, you said a woman and a man could never be friends, which is what they talk about, like, on their car trip also. So it's like a theme throughout the movie. And he's like, I wouldn't say that. And she's like, you did. He's like, oh, yeah, I did. So.
Well, and then he says, women and men can be friends if they are involved with other people.
Right. But she wasn't. Oh, she was with Joe.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So he thought it could work. But she was like, no. I think she says no, right? They don't go to dinner. Yeah. So then they part ways again. Another 5 years goes by, and Sally is now 31 years old and, like, hanging out with her gal pals. And unfortunately, Harry's suffered a divorce. So his wife tells him, one day we should not be together anymore. Finds out she fell in love with someone else, so she moves out. So Harry's pretty upset. He's depressed, but he doesn't know it, and he's just, like, moping around. So he sees Sally and her friend, played by Carrie Fisher, named Marie, at a bookstore. And he talks to Sally, and at this point in their lives, they're both in a place where they can, like, comfortably be friends with each other, because Sally actually has also just gotten out of her 5-year relationship with Joe, and Harry obviously has also gotten out of his marriage, which ended in divorce. So now they can be friends. So they have this kind of, like, strange history where they, like, know each other, but they don't really. It's an interesting thing there, but they get to talking and they become chums. They do fun chummy things together.
New York
like
City.
Go to the museum, like,
Yeah.
talking weird accents.
Seems like so much fun to have a friend in New York City. Like, just
I know.
fun things
Just,
to do.
like, do
strolling
things.
through
I know.
the park
Let's,
and the
like,
fall.
Yeah, let's get
and-
frozen yogurt
Yeah.
and, like, walk down the
Let's,
street.
let's go to a diner. Let's,
yeah.
like, go to, I don't know. It just seems like so much fun. But yeah, so they really click and just start hanging out sort of, like, all the time. So at this point, they're both, like, not dating anybody too, right? Because they're kind of fresh off of their other relationships. So Harry especially is very scarred. I wouldn't say Sally is, like, depressed. She's sort of buried her, feelings
Joe
a
was
little
pretty
bit better. Yeah, and the whole thing with Sally in that relationship was that they both realized that they wanted different things. Because sounds like they originally, which happens to a lot of couples, you go into it being like, yeah, we don't want to get married and have kids. And then one person, usually it's the woman, but not always, says, oh, God, like, I feel like I'm getting old and I do want to get married and I do want to have kids. And then the other person says, well, I still don't want those things. And then you have to break up. That's pretty normal.
Yep.
And especially in that, like, time frame, let's say, of, like, when women start turning 30 and freaking out, about eggs dying and everything, all that bullshit. So, they are just, like, hanging out, and they become what is essentially best friends. And they very, very happy. So they start kind of dating, but nothing's really like panning out. They're not really like finding anybody else. They get a brilliant idea to set up their two best friends. So Harry's best friend is this guy named Jess, and then Marie is the Carrie Fisher character. And they're both single too. So Harry sets up Sally with Jess. Marie is set up with Harry, and they go out to this very awkward dinner. We'll talk about the double date setup in a little bit and how that's basically non-existent. They find out that even though Jess, has maybe a lot in common with Sally, they're both writers. You'd think like, oh, like that would make them. Turns out Jess and Marie really hit it off. So the people they brought to set up actually like each other better. And then they leave together, and poor Sally and Harry are left by themselves. So it's one of those things, though, that like everyone knows and sees their relationship sort of blossoming and is like, man, like, why aren't they together?
Well, and Jess is like, why aren't you like if she's so attractive and has a good personality, like, why aren't you dating her? And like, you're like, yeah, why is that?
And that is a thing, though, that people don't want to ruin that, what they have. You don't want to ruin the friendship, right? That's like always a thing with, it doesn't have to be, man and woman friends. It could happen, women and women friends, or men and men, depending on which way you roll, for sure. But once you have, a friend, like, anything, trying to date will alter your friendship forever in almost all cases, right? So, like, no one wants to try that unless you're, like, really sure. But if you don't try it, then, you'll never know if this friendship could be actually, like, love of your life. So that's, like, the whole theme of the whole thing.
Right. How do they navigate those waters? Right. So, there's all these little things and, like, little suggestions. So, Harry's having a really hard time dealing with it. He, like, sees Helen out. It, like, completely, like, crumples his reality, and he, like, can't handle it. Meanwhile, Jess and Marie have moved in together. They've been together for, like, 4 months, whatever. They're, when you know, as Sweetie says. There's one... so they make this kind of standing deal where they're like, if neither one of them has a date on New Year's, like, they'll hang out with each other, which is sweet. So they're, like, dancing at this New Year's party. And they're getting, like, pretty close dancing, and then they're, like, cheek to cheek, and they're like, we're both singles, isn't this great? And then there's, like, something changes, and they, like, start feeling like I don't know, he's, like, smelling her hair, and she's like, I don't know, there's, like, a weird shift. And then they're both like, ugh, like, are we attracted to each other? And then, of course, they're counting down New Year's. So they're like, oh, God, are they going to kiss? And they're like, let's go outside and get air. So they just go outside and then kind of just, like, gloss over the moment, blah, blah, blah. So things are, like, all fine and dandy. And then Sally finds out that Joe is getting married, which is a big blow to her. I don't think she especially likes Joe, but there is something to be said when, like, you find that out. I don't know, that, like, it would crush you. Like, why didn't he pick me? Like, why didn't he want to get married to me? Yeah. Like, I wanted to get married. I told him that. And then, like, he didn't want to get married then, but now he does. It's me. Yeah. It must be me. And so she's
been
upset.
Sort of, like, been able to get over that relationship knowing that, like, okay, it wasn't meant to be because we both wanted different things. Mm-hmm. But really that wasn't the case. And she says, it wasn't that he didn't want to get married. He didn't want to get married to me. And that is probably, it's a really tough thing for people to stomach, right? Because, like,
but I don't think that's true
it's so much easier to give yourself, and say, oh, it didn't work out because of this, this, and this, not because that person didn't love me. And like, I mean, Billy Crystal finds out in his relationship too, like, he was married to someone and he found out that she didn't even love him. So that's, like, the ultimate blow. So no matter what, you're always trying to get away from coming to that realization, when almost always when people break up, that is the truth. Right. Like, they don't love you like that. They don't want to spend the rest of their life with you. They don't have that kind of love. They might have other kind of love for you, but so that is really, really hard for anybody to take. And she had, like we said, kind of buried all of that with that relationship for a couple years, and then it finally came to the forefront when she saw Joe and realized he had moved on to the point he was getting married to someone else.
Right. So she's pretty upset. So she calls Harry and he comes over to console her and she's just like sobbing. And she's like, Harry, the police hold me. And then like gives her this like weird little peck on the lips. And it's just like, you don't do that with just like your friends. But like, I mean, obviously they were like obsessed. I think they were like secretly obsessed with each other, obviously, all this time. So then, of course, it turns into like a real kiss and then cut to sex. So next morning, they have sex. Sally's like, I don't know. It seemed like she was on drugs or something. Like, like she was so weird. So happy. She was so happy, and it was sad because you're like, sad. Oh, like she must have maybe wanted this for a while, or like whatever. And then Harry's acting completely different, and he's like super cold and like not. He's just being weird. And then he does spend the night, but he gets up like right away, crack of dawn, like puts on his clothes and leaves. And she's like, "What's going on?"
Well, to his credit, it was a work day.
Yeah, so but he's still being weird and cold.
He was being weird.
And he's like, "Oh, will you go to dinner with me tonight?" And she's like, "Okay." So then they go to dinner and they like talk about how it was a mistake. They both like tell Jess and Marie and they're like, it was a mistake. Like, and then they're kind of different sides of the story, but eventually they get to the same place where they're like, oh, like it seemed good at first, but then it wasn't. And like, but it's not clear really why. Like, there's still kind of that mystery of like, well, what's going on here? Like, we get why Harry's being weird, but not really. And like, we get then why Sally is being mean to Harry after, but not really. And I don't know. It's kind of it's an interesting situation.
Yeah, it's really confusing. I'm confused still to this day.
I think that she knew she was in love with Harry like pretty quickly, and she was mad that like he didn't realize that.
Right.
He was acting like it was a mistake, and she was like, no, well, it wasn't. Like, I do like you. But he was like, no, it's just
well, do you also think that like she felt like she had to say, oh, it was a mistake, but didn't necessarily expect him to say that or something? Yeah. Or was hoping really deep down that he
would feel the same. Yeah. But she like didn't want to admit it. So he was just like, oh, totally a mistake. Right. So it just really hurt her feelings. And she was in that vulnerable place with the Joe stuff. So it was like, she was pissed. Yeah. So then they kind of like not talk for like 3 weeks or whatever. And then we go to Marie and Jess's wedding where Sally and Harry are maid of honor and best man. And then they kind of have it out there, and she like yells at him, is like, you're an asshole, and he called her like a dog or something. I don't know. It's like a weird.
I forgot.
I lost track of the fight, but anyways, they leave. He tries to call her and like apologize, and she finally picks up one night and she's like, Harry, like, what are you doing? Like, just move on. Like, you don't feel that way about me. It's fine. Because he is still trying to be like, let's still be friends. Yeah. And she's like, no, because I was in love with you. And he's like not getting that, and like still not like saying that he's in love with her. Yeah. So come to New Year's, of course, they have that like long-standing date. He tries to ask her if they want to go out together, and she's like, no, go away. You broke my heart. And then she still goes to this New Year's Eve party. Like, good for her for like putting on a cute dress and trying to get out there. She's like dancing with some weird guy. She's with Jess and Marie, but like she's obviously doesn't want to be there. And she's like, I need to leave. Like, this is not. It's like 10 seconds before midnight. She's like, I'm getting out of here. Meanwhile, Harry has like tried convincing himself like that this is great. Like, eating Mallomars by yourself on New Year's Eve is like the thing to do. And then he's walking outside, and he's like in his head, like, wait a minute. Like, it's very like Cher from Clueless moment where he's like, oh my God, like, I am in love with Sally. And then he finally realizes it, and he runs to the party. It's a great scene. And they're like counting down, and Sally's like getting ready to leave, and she's super upset. And she sees Harry running up the stairs, and she's like, what are you doing here, Mama? And then he's like, I love you. I love you. And then she's mad because she's like, you can't just say you love someone. Like, this is why it makes it impossible for me to hate you, Harry. And I hate you, Harry. I hate you. And then they kiss, really, and then they kiss again, and then they're like, yay. And And then throughout the movie, you see these little like interviews with people talking about how they first met, like their husband or wife. And the last one is Harry and Sally, and they're like, "Oh yeah, at first when we met, I didn't like her, like you didn't, I didn't like you," and like some, funny stuff. So we always ask, did they make it? Turns out, I guess they did. They get married. I mean, who knows how long, if it lasts or whatever, but it's sweet.
Who knows?
So they finally get together in the end. It only took them like 20 years to 12 years to realize
That's
that,
from when they met at that college road trip thing. Yeah.
because I really think that there was a spark there, like pretty immediately, but because of this, like him being like creepy, like maybe if he wasn't creepy, it could have happened organically, and then they could have stayed friends in New York or gone on a date, and that would have happened. But yeah, I mean, I blame it all on Harry. But they had to grow and mature. Like, I don't think they would have been successful as a couple if they had started dating that early and as they were so young. Because, I mean, as darling as Sally is, she is very, like, neurotic and annoying about things. Mm-hmm. And Harry is a jackass. So it just, why waste it, Sometimes you need to mature, and then you find the right person, and then it's
they
right.
Moved, they were all, like, opposite sides of the spectrum, and as they aged, they moved closer to the center on both of their, like, kind of personalities.
Beautiful.
Where they met in the middle, guys. But yeah, I don't know what is the moral of the story, because the whole big theme, is that men and women can't be friends, and people have argued this since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. Can men and women be friends?
If you listen to Nora Ephron, no, because like this is just like what happened in You've Got Mail, right? Where it's like she and Tom Hanks are like these cute buddies, and they're like doing all these fun things in New York City, and like there's always a scene with them like buying plants or something, and like I don't know, it always seems so magical. These places. My favorite magical moment is in, maybe you agree with me, is in Look Who's Talking, when she like buys the apple and like just like bites into it. Oh my God, I loved that. When I was little, I was like, that's so cool.
Oh yeah. But yeah,
same kind of thing. And then you end up, they're in love. He's the one. And I don't know, like I think if people are a certain level of attractive and they're both like have that want and sexual desire and need, I guess you can't really be friends.
I don't think you can be 100% friends with someone, whether it's of the opposite sex or if you're talking about,
you just can't be attracted.
Someone,
can't even have a second of attraction. Like you have to always come to it with that notion of like, nope, friendship.
Yep, exactly. Because I think someone is always going to like the other person, and that will always alter your relationship just a little bit. And it can never be true friendship if that's sort of something that's always in the way. Mm. Now, what about if you are together at one point, or you are physical or whatever, like you get that part out of the way and then you become friends after.
Like Elaine and Jerry.
Like Elaine and Jerry. I've had a couple male friends like that. We had our little whatever. We never dated, but like whatever, we hooked up and stuff. And then that did make like somewhat of a better friendship because we sort of got that out of the way. And I realized, okay, we would never make it as a couple. Like we'd be terrible. And then we became almost an Elaine and Jerry. So I think that can work a little bit. But if there's ever, like as we said, a chance that someone has a tiny grain of pining for that person. Yeah. Whether it's a physical relationship you want or a more like emotional dating kind of one. Like I don't think you can ever be true friends. I don't think that's not what friendship's about, you know? Right. So then it wasn't really about friendship. It was that they really did like each other. Right. And they just like took them a while.
They were just being dumb. Yeah. Totally. So, I don't know what would you like to talk about first? The famous orgasm scene.
Sure. Okay. So, the most famous scene from this movie, one that gets mentioned a lot, and sadly one that is edited out of a lot of DVDs and versions on TVs and airplanes. Really? Yeah. This world is so prudish. Is the famous orgasm scene. So it takes place at this deli in New York City, Katz Deli. It's this really cool Jewish deli. I've actually been there. They have a plaque, I guess, at the booth that they sit at that says, Harry Met Sally was filmed here. I'll have what she's having. And it's a great scene, and one that was written that the two characters, Harry and Sally, were just supposed to be talking about women faking orgasms. Mm-hmm. and it was Meg Ryan's idea to actually have her act out one, and it was
very vivid. Yeah,
I know,
and it's
the big
like
hit.
it's yeah. So she basically Harry's whole thing is like, women love having sex with me. I know, and she's like, well, how do you know? He's like, because they have an orgasm. And she's like, well, how do you know it was a real orgasm? He's like, because I'd be able to tell the difference, which is like always the thing that guys say. And so she's like, really? Okay. And then she just kind of like goes about, and then she just starts being like, and then like is doing all these like orgasm noises until the point where like it escalates, and she's like screaming and banging on the table like in this restaurant. Everyone has stopped what they're doing and just watched her like freaking out for no reason. Like they're like, is someone under there? Like, what's going on? Nope, she's just being crazy. So then she makes her point, and Harry's like, okay. And the lady across the way is like, I'll have what she's having. And it's like one of the best lines in the history of cinema. Rob Reiner's mom is the woman who says that. But it's a great scene, and I mean, really well done by Meg Ryan. Very realistic orgasm, very like pornographic orgasm, but like if like I'm sure a guy would be able not to tell the difference if that was happening when they were having sex. He'd be like, I am the god, and like would think he's amazing. But you know, I mean, the sad truth is, I guess, you know, that's the thing. I feel like it's not talked about as much now because there's like other ways for women to have orgasm. You know, like I don't know, like I don't hear a lot of people faking orgasms anymore. But I'm also just only friends with married people, so maybe it just doesn't come up.
I'm 100% sure they do. I feel like it's.
But like
I experienced obviously it much more when I was in the dating sense, because you don't women, you know, it can take a little bit longer when you don't know somebody as well, right? So the thing is when you're married is that you know that person knows how to like, you know how to push each other's buttons enough where you can probably finish every time. But if you're new and you're dating, you're sleeping with a lot of different people, like this is going to come up a lot where you just don't know the person, they don't know you.
And they're not good. Maybe they're not good at sex.
Maybe they're not good at sex. Okay, right. But and it's also, I think, something that you as a woman and as a young woman, like also something that you just do because you are used to just being like, I want this guy to like me. I want him to think that he's doing a good job and stuff like that. Mm. And that kind of turns around when you get older and you realize that's a bad thing because you're just perpetuating like you not having a good time, right? Yeah. So I think it's a thing with age. I was guilty of it for many years. Again, I think what's in your 20s, it's sort of like something that you do. And for the most part, it's also when you are like really done and like you don't think it's ever going to happen and you just want the guy to be done. So that's why a lot of women do it. But like, why does he have to? Why do you have to orgasm for sex to be done? Like, I thought guys were over that. Like, I thought they realized that like that doesn't. It's not like. Well, in my experience, I've had like a lot of good partners where they feel they really won't finish until you finish. So but they're like saving their orgasm until you have your orgasm, and they can hold off on having an orgasm. Mm-hmm. Wow, it's really impressive. Yeah. Good for them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know enough people that are like having sex, so couldn't tell you if people are faking orgasms or what these days. They definitely still do. I mean, they're not usually like a show like that for sure, but you know, word of advice, if you can, don't do it because, like I said, you're just perpetuating a lie and a myth, and that, you know, letting men think that a couple pumps is all it takes, and you're good. This is where we got into this trouble to begin with, right? Yeah. Like, always be truthful, and if it doesn't work for you, figure out what will work for you. Tell them what works. Yeah, exactly. Be communicative. But yeah, great scene. Freaking love it. Okay. I guess we'll just go out with like other favorite scenes. So my next favorite scene is the karaoke Oklahoma scene. So they're in Sharper Image. Remember that store? Mm-hmm. Does it still exist? I'm not sure. You know, it had all the gadgets and stuff, right? The store was weird. There's only like one karaoke machine in the whole place. Yeah. Did you notice that? It was like very open. And he called it like a song machine or something. Miami Song Machine? But yeah, you remember Sharper Image had all those like cool gadgets. So you'd have like massagers and chair massagers and like weird little like office stuff that was like maybe you didn't need, but it was like cool. Those like pin things that you like stick your face into, and then it makes an imprint of your face on the other side. So they're looking for what I assume is like an engagement present for Jess and Marie. and they come upon this
Or housewarming or something,
yeah,
yeah.
like a song machine, which is basically like a karaoke machine, but with tapes. So you have a tape that plays like the backing track, and then you sing along with it. So they pick up the paper, and the song on the tape is "Surrey with a Fringe on Top" from Oklahoma, which is like, okay, weird karaoke song.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Who
guess
picked
it was
that?
like a show tunes tape, fine. And it's amazing because, first of all, Harry knows all the lyrics to it for some reason and like acts it out in this like brilliant way, and he's like so good at it. Then you have Sally warbling along. She's like the worst voice ever. Is, you know, those people who sing karaoke and it's like totally not on the right like speed. I mean, it's tricky with karaoke because you don't know like the tempo sometimes. But she's like way ahead of the whole song, and it's just really bad. Anyway, so then they run into Harry's ex-wife, and it's just like it's like a nightmare scenario, right? Because the first time you want to see your ex-wife, you want you to be looking good, you want to look confident, like be on your best, and he's like singing like Oklahoma.
I mean, they looked cute, and he's
Look
with his
cute.
hot babe.
I know,
So,
I know.
like, come on, Harry.
But
suck it up.
I don't know why that scene cracks me up. I love the musical Oklahoma, and it's always like really stuck with me. And that song is just funny.
Yeah, it's a good little scene. I like it a lot. We also like the Pictionary scene where they're like playing Pictionary with a bunch of their friends, and Sally's drawing the word baby talk, and she's drawn.
Drawn? Is
She's
drawing?
drawn a picture of a baby, quote unquote. It looked to me like a turtle. Like, it had like weird like four legs.
I mean, they got the baby part.
They got the baby part, and then they can't get the lips. She's like putting all these arrows, and the Jess guy is just like, the Jess guy and Harry are just like shouting things out, and Jess is in particular is just making up words, and so sweet. Yeah, you can recreate it's your favorite part.
So it's just they know it's baby something, and he's like baby, just like baby fish mouth. And
Baby fish mouth.
And it's supposed to be like a phrase, and they're like, that's not a phrase.
There's no phrase.
And then they're just like baby, like, no sir, that's my baby. Like, yes sir, I don't mean maybe. So they're just like kind of like improvising off all the baby stuff. It's really funny, and it then at the end like they're like baby talk, she says, and Jess is like, what is that? That's not a phrase. Like, you like cannot believe it, and then Harry's like, and baby fish mouth is like, oh god.
It's pretty funny.
You had to be there. But
Pretty funny.
It made me miss Pictionary, first of all. Don't get to play that game enough. I feel like that's one that's kind of gone the way of the dodo a little bit. We played it, I remember, like years ago.
It's like in other forms now.
Yeah.
Like Cranium has a
that's
Pictionary
true.
element, and there's always like something
But
like that.
remember, you and I played that with Haley and her
Yes.
mom, and we like kicked
ass. Well,
And
it's
it was
not.
really
I mean,
fun.
yeah, Sweetie and I can't be on the same team for anything because we're like we share the same brain, and all we need to do is say like one word just to be like if we were, I don't know, we could try it now. I don't know, but it
What's
just
the one we're really good
makes
at?
sense.
Taboo.
We're good at like
kill
you have
it.
all these things you can't say, and we're like dad's like dad's favorite candy or something, and we're like lemonheads or not.
Yeah.
That's not even
Be
it.
like,
But
Dad's old dust rags.
underwear.
People would be like, what is happening?
Yeah, people think it's like some witchcraft. It's like, guys, we just we share a lot of things. But yeah, we're too good at games, so we can't be on the same
But
team.
you know what? If you ever play Pictionary, obviously the board game version, it's like a little whiteboard kind of thing, and there's these little panels. But they had like the actual game show one, which was like a big easel with like big pieces of paper and big chunky
People
markers.
just had easels in the 90s. It was like,
Dang.
you know,
So much
it's like a
fun.
thing.
Yeah.
A thing. What other good scenes did you want to talk about?
So these aren't specific scenes, but this movie is very much like a New York City movie. So also like kind of typical. Well, I'm just thinking of You've Got Mail that we said that about too. But there's just some movies that are very classic New York City. So they show New York City like at its best, and every time you watch it, you're like, I want to live there. So this one also is seasonal. So they go through the different seasons. So like in the fall, there's all these orange leaves, and they're walking through the park, and she's wearing like a cute little hat and a cute little like fall outfit. There's a couple of Christmas scenes where she buys her little Christmas tree at like the corner store, like little place, and has to drag it home, like all those like romanticizing the city moments, which like I just love. And like we talked about, like diners and all that kind of fun stuff.
Outdoor markets.
Fancy New Year's Eve parties.
Oh
Like,
my God,
who
yeah.
those
Where are
people who
these
threw that
parties?
party?
No fair.
Crazy.
No fair.
I know. So I think that's it for scenes for me. Any others for you?
Nope. Nada. Moving on.
Okay. So a couple like fun facts, I guess. So the little love stories that they have with the people, all older people, so they all look on their like 70s and 80s, let's say. They've all been married for like between like 30 and 50 years, right? So those are all real love stories that Rob Reiner and Nora Ephron gathered. But those are actors and actresses like saying them, which I couldn't believe.
I know, because I was trying to remember that at the beginning. I was like, I forgot if these are real people or not.
I mean, they're so awkwardly acted, you think it's real. But they were actually just actors.
Even the Asian couple?
Yes.
What?
I know.
I mean, I'd like to see a behind the scenes of like, what are they really like? Because wow, yeah, you fooled me.
Yeah,
the first one, the woman looked familiar, so that's
Okay.
what made me think that like she's like a token old lady in something else. So that's what made me think maybe they're not real. But then the ones after that were like so weird and awkward. Like the one where they're just like talking over each other the whole time. Like what?
I know. Like what? Where is this? I love that
Wow,
one.
yeah,
It's
I'm
so
impressed.
funny.
I'm impressed. Weren't like his parents one of the stories? Isn't that one of the trivia
Rob
facts?
Reiner's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I wonder which one it is though.
Forgot.
So a couple people who were supposed to play the lead characters but didn't. Love always doing this little segment. Tom Hanks, so of course, Nora Ephron sort of muse. Yeah, he declined it. Didn't just thought it wasn't like a good project. He sort of like could have been a Billy Crystal type where you'd be like, well, even if you're a jerk, it's hard to dislike you.
I feel like he's way more likable than
Yeah.
Billy Crystal
Yeah,
is, though.
definitely.
So maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. Michael Keaton, too intense, I think. I don't know.
Intense. Based on what? Beetlejuice?
Batman?
Batman? But he's like a comedic. He does like comedic things. I don't know.
Can't see it. And Bill Murray.
I mean, yeah. He's the same brand of Billy Crystal, of this like really cynical but like hilarious kind of person. So that probably would have been okay.
Yeah. And then the only woman that I saw was Molly Ringwald.
For the lead?
Yeah,
For Sally?
Sally. Weird.
I thought you said she wrote this with Meg Ryan in mind.
No.
What?
No,
Did
I
you
don't
say
think
that?
so. No, I think this is the first movie she put her in and then put her in the other ones.
Oh.
But
We'll have to listen back to the tape. I'm pretty sure she said that, everyone. But interesting. Yeah. Yeah. She's too young.
yeah, I just can't see it. But I guess there was like a Broadway version of this, and she did play Sally in the Broadway version. Interesting. Yeah.
Make a Broadway versions of everything.
I know, so crazy. So this movie, it was known that they had a lot of trouble finding a title for this movie. And they finally settled on When Harry Met Sally. Nora Ephron hated it, like to her dying day. She's like, that was the one thing I didn't like about this movie. We did not like the title. So here's some of the alternate titles that they came up with. See if you like any of these.
Okay.
Just Friends.
Too obvious.
Yeah.
Cheesy.
Playing Melancholy Baby. I don't
What the
understand
fuck?
that one.
Is it like, wait, play me or
Playing
playing?
Melancholy Baby.
Okay.
Boy Meets Girl.
Dumb.
Blue Moon.
I didn't really see a lot of moons.
Words of Love. Boring. It Had to Be You.
You know, they love a song as a movie title. They love that so they can use it.
How about this one? Harry, this is Sally.
What the fuck? Really
Terrible.
Deadbeats.
Or How They Met.
Yeah, How They Met would probably be the
that's not
best one.
terrible.
But I think it's a good title. I think
it.
I don't see there's not a lot of titles like that.
Yeah.
Like clever things. I don't know. I like
Yeah,
it.
I don't mind it at all. Okay, so lastly, unless you have anything else, I wanted to talk about things that, you know, are not necessarily 80s, but are just extinct now just because of like technology and culture and stuff, right? So I already said this a little bit, but the setup double date. I feel like that's pretty much extinct. You really don't get that anymore. I mean, you barely get setups anymore.
Right. I mean, everyone's like together, so there's none.
The setup double date, which is like a cool idea. But in their case, obviously, you know, didn't work out. It was really like a swap.
Date swap.
Date swap, yeah, which is like super awkward. Power walking. So there's this great scene where, you know, it's like a very New York movie, a very chatty movie. So the whole movie is just the two characters basically chatting with each other, chatting with their two best friends, right? So they have to figure out all these little like activities for them to do while they're having these big discussions. So for the men, it's all around sports. So they go to a batting cage. They're like at a football game. Are they playing like racquetball one time? Maybe?
Probably.
Yeah.
That was the sport of the 90s.
Right. And then one scene, and you know, this is kind of reminiscent of Sex in the City too, right? They're always like, oh, like what activity can we make them do? They can't just be like sitting at home, you know, chatting it up. So they have them power walking, which reminded me actually of a scene in Sex in the City too.
Yeah.
And you have Billy Crystal in the tightest black little spandex pants with a sweatshirt on, and he has like the skinniest legs, and he's doing this like weird little strut. You know, it's that power walking strut where you're like trying to like move as fast as you can but still walk.
But he's being like elasticy. He looks like Gumby, and he's like, and like it's so weird.
So weird.
Funny.
But I feel like power walking like was a
people
thing.
don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
I think they're probably like, this isn't good for you, or like it's bad for your body to put it in that stress. I don't know.
It's not a good thing. Okay, alphabetizing or filing your movie collection. So Meg Ryan, after they sleep together, Billy Crystal finds this little card box where she has all of her videotapes put onto index cards and alphabetized. Now, my reaction was, oh, that's like if someone wants to borrow one, she like knows, you know, that something's been borrowed. But Sweetie actually had a different theory, and I think that's the right one.
Yeah, I think she's just like so she can like browse what movie do I want to watch tonight, and then she can go through them and say, oh yeah, Casablanca, and then goes and gets it. I guess I don't know,
which is really smart because like it's just easier to pick up that box and be like, what do I want to watch tonight, and like and
then stand there and like
and look and try to
through
see which
them.
ones you have.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we don't have that option because with a push of a button, you can watch almost every movie.
Yeah, but some people
existed.
people still own DVDs and you know, need to pick one or whatever, maybe. So maybe if anyone does have a collection, consider the index card.
Outdated. A Rolodex. So Marie,
not to be confused with a Rolex watch.
Different. So Rolodex was that kind of, you know, you'd have like a little file system. It would have different little separators for, you know, all the different letters of the alphabet. And I think you would put in like either a contact card or usually some people's business cards. So you just like flip through and be like, oh, like almost like an address book, but like a little bit more like physical roll through version. So Marie has this for like eligible men.
Seems like a ton in there.
And now, like, obviously we don't have that, but now I'm thinking like you could say like scroll through Facebook friends and be like, do like something similar like that. So there's like,
make it work.
Honestly, like electronic versions of that.
Well, and like dating apps are like linked into your Facebook accounts and your friends and their friends. So it's more or less the same thing.
Yeah. But good system, Marie. I'm behind it for the 1989 life. And then that hat/bonnet veils of the 80s. So Marie gets married. She has a very classic wedding dress. But she has the hat veil or the bonnet veil, and I can't stand those.
Do you think that's when you have short hair? Like that's the thing? Because like you can't, there's not enough hair to keep like a comb in there because you don't want to do like a Meg Ryan short do updo.
Get a hairpiece or something. I don't know.
Fake bun. Use hair pieces.
Fake buns. Yeah.
I don't know.
I just hated it. It just was like so unglamorous, and I don't know. It just was.
It wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good dress. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a good. It wasn't a good.
She was more than that. You know, she was more than that dress, and I was very sad that she went so traditional. She just seems so much more modern.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have one final question for you.
Oh boy.
Do you think Mallomars are the greatest cookies of all time?
I can't even tell you the last time I had one.
know.
And do they still make those?
I think I've had one like 3 times in my life. If you recall, Mallomars have like a graham cracker. It's basically a s'more cookie. Graham cracker bottom, marshmallow, and then covered in chocolate, right?
Oh, yeah. But they were always like the graham cracker was too dry or
Yeah.
something.
No,
and
they're
I just
not-
remember
they're
like
not good.
that part didn't taste good. And the marshmallows, it's not like a gooey s'more marshmallow.
No, marshmallow cookies are a tough sell.
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
a tough
never
sell.
perfect.
Yeah.
So then my
Isn't
second
there like
question
an
for you.
Irish version of those that we ate in Ireland, or like that
Yeah.
Jacques brought?
Yeah, that's not familiar.
There's called something else. Yeah.
So second question for you. What is then the greatest cookie of all time?
Greatest cookie of all time. Are we talking like commercial cookie?
Yeah. I think like in the cookie section of a grocery store.
Oh,
Not like
okay.
homemade chocolate chip cookies. It's got to be like...
So for me, it's Rainbow Chips Deluxe Keebler. Those are my fave.
Dang.
Just like the perfect little cookie. You get 3 M&Ms in each one. They like never skimp on that. And I just love them. I could fucking like pop those like
Those
nothing.
were good.
I mean, a lot of people will say Oreos. Sure, that's like a classic.
I bought gluten-free Oreos. They're good, but I don't like need them all the time.
Right. I mean, did you dunk them in milk? People say that's
Yeah,
the way
I
to
never
do it.
liked
You
that.
know,
I drank my milk with it. I don't like a soggy Oreo. That's my thing.
you don't want it too soggy,
I
but
know.
you it's like a little bit. It's good. I
It's
don't
good.
know.
It's
It's
still
good.
good.
It's a fun. It's
I
a
don't
treat.
like then how your milk gets all the cookie crumbs in it, though.
Some people like that. I would never drink the milk after that. So I just use them to dunk. But I mean, then you have your Girl Scout cookies. Then you have your cookies that you make at home. I just made a batch of chocolate chip cookies the other night. I was like depressed that I didn't have any dessert, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I can make
Yeah,
cookies."
those look
good.
Here's my favorite greatest cookie of all time, which I can no longer eat. EL fudge. Remember those? It was like a sandwich
Elf
cookie.
fudge. EL fudge? No, ELF. It wasn't like elf.
The
EL
F-
fudge.
The F is.
Oh, the F is the
is the fudge.
fudge. 34
so they were
years.
sandwich cookies shaped in the little Keebler
Yeah. Oh,
elves.
yeah.
And it was,
Classic,
vanilla
classic.
cookie with chocolate in the middle was my flavor, but I believe they had chocolate cookie. They had it
Yeah.
reversed, or they had all
Were
chocolate
there like
ones.
different elf patterns on
Oh,
each
yeah.
one? Was
Oh,
like
yeah.
a different elf?
I could eat those.
No girl elves, though. I don't remember any girl Keebler elves.
Those
What's up
were
with that?
so delicious.
Yeah, those are fun. Yeah. Man, I could have one.
Yeah.
Should have bought one at the store. Good times. I love cookies.
What about fudge stripe ones? Remember those?
Yeah, they're kind of thin. Like I felt like they were trying to be a Girl Scout cookie, but they weren't. So I'm
calling
not
Rainbow
super
Chips
into them.
Deluxe, though.
Yeah, I love those. Love them. All right.
All right.
Well,
so that's our
good
Harry
talk.
and Sally talk. We talked about orgasms, favorite cookies, and a lot of
And
bad
stuff. Landline telephones.
Wagon wheel coffee tables.
So much. Anyways, do you have thoughts? Find us on Twitter at The Sweetie Club or on Instagram at Large Marge Sent us. Thank you, as always, for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, rape artists.
Rape artists.